Questions for reflection. We hear more of the Apostle Paul's goodbye address to the elders and faithful of Ephesus. You can sense the genuine fatherly love this great apostle has for the church. You can also feel the bonds of genuine affection the faithful have for him. This was characteristic of the early Christian communities. Jesus said, "By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, the love you have for one another." That's John 13:35. Love was the binding force of the relational identity of the early church. Tertullian wrote that the Romans would exclaim, quote, "See how they love one another." Justin Martyr wrote of this love, quote, "We who used to value the acquisition of wealth and possessions more than anything else, now bring what we have into a common fund and share it with anyone who needs it. We used to hate and destroy one another and refuse to associate with people of another race or country. Now, because of Christ, we live together with such people and pray for our enemies," end quote. Paul, as their father in the faith, also warned of the hardships they would suffer. He warned of the wolves who would come with false teachings, and his warnings were accurate. One of the greatest dangers to the church of the first 3 centuries was such false teaching. It's still one of the greatest dangers to the church in our time. The church is a relational reality. Christianity is not me and Jesus, rather it's me in Jesus, and in Jesus with you for the sake of the world. Do we view our relationship with other Christians in this way? Do we have genuine affection for them as brothers and sisters? Do we guard the teaching we receive from the scriptures, the catechism, and the teaching office of the church? How important is it to us to be Catholic Christians? Do we, like the psalmist David, regularly acknowledge the power of God? Do we look to Him to receive the strength and power that we need? What role does God actually have in our daily lives? Is He central? Or do we have sort of a God on the shelf, someone we turn to when we feel incapable of handling things? Do we take Him off the shelf and call on Him? The Church reminds us in the Catholic Catechism, and I quote, "Of all the divine attributes, only God's omnipotence is named in the Creed. To confess this power has great bearing on our lives. We believe that His might is universal. For God, who created everything, also rules everything and can do everything." That's paragraph 268. And in the next paragraph, and I quote, "He is the Lord of the universe, whose order He established, and which remains wholly subject to Him and at His disposal. He's master of history, governing hearts and events in keeping with His will," end quote. We need to acknowledge the omnipotence of God and begin to realize more and more who He truly is. Only then will we come to understand who we are. Jesus continues His heartfelt priestly prayer to the Father in the gospel text appointed for today's Holy Mass. He knows what is coming as He walks toward the day when He will stretch His arms out on the cross and embrace the fallen world. He knows that He will defeat death, rise, and that He will return to the Father. He wants those whom He loves to experience unity with Him and with the Father by the power of the Holy Spirit. Those whom He loves includes you and me. He prays, "I am not asking you to remove them from the world, but to protect them from the evil one. They do not belong to the world any more than I belong to the world," Jesus said. He continued, "Consecrate them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I've sent them into the world, and for their sake, I consecrate myself, so that they too may be consecrated in truth," end quote. To be consecrated is to be set apart, to be dedicated. Jesus asked the Father to set us apart from this world by setting us apart for the truth. Jesus set us apart by giving Himself to us completely, redeeming us from the grip of the evil one and freeing us from the penalty of sin and the separation it brings. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He also invites us to continue on in the truth, to take an active role by living a consecrated life, a life set apart for God. Hear His words. "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." That's John 8:32. Do we understand what it means to be set apart for God, to be consecrated in truth? Do we stay in His Word?